So what exactly is Imu? Is it a person? Is it an entity? Or is it multiple souls inhabiting one person? I, for one, think Imu is an entity rather than a person. Actually, I think Imu is an entity that has somehow possessed an actual person. That person being Lili D. Nefertari. Although Lili is a very newly introduced character in the story, I think her connections to Imu and the Void Century are undeniable at this point. Many people have theorized that Imu is actually Lili, which I think is the case. But the real question is, how? How would Imu take control of Lili, and what exactly is their connection? The possibility of multiple souls inhabiting one person isn't new to One Piece at all. Neither is the idea of soul possession. The most common example are Big Mom and Mother Caramel. Another example is Cavendish and Hakuba. But really, the most interesting example and the most common example in all of the story is devil fruits. In chapter 385, Jabber explains that once you eat a devil fruit, it means that a devil now lives inside of you. In recent chapters, we learned that devil fruits have a will of their own, especially in the case that they are awakened. In chapter 1069, Vegapunk claims that awakened devil fruit users and devil fruits absorb and control the user's personality. When thinking about this, I remember when Luffy awakened his fruit. When Luffy awakened his fruit, something weird that Kaido asked him is, "Who are you?" Implying that Kaido somehow sensed another personality with his haki within Luffy. Even Zunisha proclaimed that Joy Boy has arrived. So I think Oda is intentional by making it very clear that there is another entity inside of Luffy. But in Luffy's case, he seemed to be in control because he replied to Kaido's question by saying, "I am Luffy, the man who will become the Pirate King." So we do know that awakened zones have strong willpower and they can affect the user's personality. But in Luffy's case, his willpower was stronger. But this makes me think, what exactly would happen if someone ate an awakened zone devil fruit that had a willpower stronger than their own? Which personality would take precedent? Which personality would be in control? Would it be the devil fruit users or the devil fruit itself? Especially in the case of a mythical god Zoan, like the Nika fruit, which is implied to have a very strong willpower as opposed to all fruits in the verse. But my theory is, if someone ate a mythical Zoan god fruit with a willpower weaker than said fruit, the devil in that fruit would be the one in control. So how does this tie to Lili? I believe that Imu is actually a mythical god Zoan devil fruit that Lili has eaten. Even when you consider the name Imu, right? It matches the naming pattern of Luffy's mythical devil fruit. Gomu Gomu, Imu Imu. Lili ate the Imu devil fruit and awakened it, and the devil Imu gained full control of Lili's body. The second part of this video has to do with the significance in spirals and how that relates to the spirals in Imu's eyes. The most interesting thing that I've been able to come up with is that spirals in general in Japanese culture has been used to depict things that have to do with the philosophy of the soul. And even when you consider one of the most popular anime in history, Naruto, Naruto's curse seal mark is a spiral to basically emphasize that there are two souls residing in Naruto itself. Of course, Kurama and of course Naruto. But the spiral sealed mark does mean that there is a demon manifested inside the user's body. And how that relates to spirals of Imu in One Piece in general is that spirals are also used in One Piece to depict souls and the mixing of souls. If you consider even devil fruits themselves consistently have spirals. Why? Because spirals basically mean that there is a spirit inside this object, or in this case, inside their fruit. In the same sense, I believe that Imu has a spirit or is a spirit itself. Another very common place that we see spirals or we see circulars or rings of circles is the eyes of Mihawk. And people have always been trying to come up with why exactly does Mihawk and Imu have very similar eyes. People have come up with the idea that they may be from the same tribe, which I don't think so. I don't think that's the case at all. I actually believe that they have the very same eyes because Oda is trying to tell us something both about themselves. I think with Mihawk, in his case, he also has a cursed spirit or a cursed manifestation inside of him, or he uses a cursed spirit. In that case, I believe that the cursed spirit is Yuro, his cursed sword. His name is Dracul Mihawk, precisely because of the fact I believe that his sword itself hosts the Dracula spirit. And I know seems like it's getting off the rails of what One Piece's power system is, but you have to understand cursed swords and cursed sword lore is something very unexplored in One Piece. People still to this day are unsure exactly what Ashura is. If you know what Ashura is, it's Zoro's technique. But most people don't understand that Ashura is the effect of Katetsu, the Katetsu blade. We learned very early on in East Blue, when Zoro was buying the sword, that the sword had its own personality. It cut without Zoro intending it to cut. We see the very same thing with Enma. Enma had his personality. He took Zoro's haki even before Zoro says so, and he also cuts before Zoro even gives him the will to do so. And what's common in these both swords is that they are sentient or they have their own clobotomen. And swords have clobotomens much like ships have clobotomen, but we see that according to the Shimotsuki grandpa in Zoro's village, swords are meant to kill. Swords are meant to cut. So the manifestation of a sword spirit will always be something of demonic nature. In Katetsu's case, Ashura is this demon living in Katetsu. And we see there's a lot of significance with Ashura being a Hindu demonic god. And if you consider also the Gandhi Gorosei, and emphasis on him looking like Gandhi here, because Katetsu is a Hindu Indian lore demonic spirit. And we see that Gandhi, which is a famous Indian thinker, philosopher, and activist, is what Oda is portraying the Gorosei with the first Katetsu to have. And it would actually make sense that the Katetsus 1, 2, and 3 all have Hindu-based demonic spirits within them. We know that the swords have demonic spirits in them because we also could look at Enma as an example. We know that Enma is very different from a typical sword, obviously. But what you may have not noticed is that Enma already is confirmed to be sentient by Big Mom itself. Remember in the raid where Big Mom told Kaido to dodge the sword, and she said that this is not an ordinary sword, Kaido, you should dodge. But what's weird here is that we can't suggest that Kaido has better observation haki than Big Mom, but we can suggest that she understood the sword's capabilities because of her soul fruit. She herself has been able to imbue inanimate objects with personalities of their own. So it's rightfully the case that she'd be able to see if a sword has a soul in it. And going further with that Enma thought process, even the clobarment of Enma has already been showed. The clobarment of Enma is that Grim Reaper spirit we see show up in front of Zoro. We know that this is the case because when Zoro lost Shisui, the replacement that he used against Killer Kamazo was a scythe. And this is perfect foreshadowing by Oda because the Grim Reaper itself, which I think is the spirit of Enma, the clobarment of Enma, had a scythe itself. And we know that Enma was the replacement for Shisui. So Cursed Sword lore is something unexplored by One Piece, but I think by Oda, but Oda leaves a lot of clues as to him wanting it to be clear that inanimate objects have souls, have wills of their own, and there is such a thing as cursed swords. There is such a thing as demon manifestations of swords, but they're not exactly demons, they're just the manifestations of the sword spirit. And we see that in some cases, in Zoro's case, he can manifest the Ashura spirit within him, which creates the 9-sword style 3-head spirit. And the significance of this is that we understand that Imu is somehow a devil fruit, and there's devils residing in the fruits, and there's cursed spirits residing in the fruits, and this can be said for almost all objects in One Piece, insofar that they have the capability to have spirits of their own. Going on this trend, we know that Mihawk's spiral eye is because of his cursed sword and him sharing a perfect bond. We can tell this because Hakuba and Cavendish had the very same thing. Cavendish has a cursed sword. That cursed sword embodies the spirit of Hakuba. If you didn't know, Hakuba is a popular Japanese demon folklore. I'm not sure if it's in Japan or another country, but Hakuba itself is a demon spirit, and what's consistent between Mihawk and Cavendish is their eyes. When Cavendish and Hakuba are sharing their body, and we understand that Mihawk, or I theorize that Mihawk has a perfected version of what Cavendish has. Mihawk has perfected his cursed sword spirit and synergized it with his own, and they are no longer fighting with each other. I also believe that's part of the way that you can make a black blade. That eye effect is very important because the eyes are said to be the windows of the soul. Even in Hakuba and Cavendish's case, we see that the first indication that Hakuba is taking over Cavendish, or they're sharing a body, is with the eyes. I believe this is the very same thing for Zoro. In Zoro's case, I believe that Ashura does come into his eye. We see the red eye effect every so often with Zoro, especially in pre-time skip and a little bit in post-time skip here in some of the animations. So this is all to say that soul manipulation and soul manifestation and the eyes being the windows to the soul is something that's very, very emphasized in One Piece. If you really look into what Oda is trying to tell us with the different power systems he has. Even with Brook, the ability to manipulate souls is something that's very, 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 very common in One Piece. And I also believe that the reason Zoro was able, or the reason Zoro has no eye now, is that the way that a cursed sword comes into the user's body is through the eyes. As I said, the eyes are the windows of the soul. So I also believe that Mihawk had to scar Zoro's eye to stop a full cursed sword demon manifestation, which Hakuba almost had. I believe that the technique is to scar the eye because we see that in Cavendish's case, if you look at the position of his sword and the position that Hakuba was in, the part Hakuba was in, it was in the position of his sword. So we know that the cursed sword starts to use or manifest your body from the hand, the dominant hand that you're holding it in. Even in the case of Enma, when Enma slashed Sanji without Zoro's permission, he basically used Zoro's whole the side of the body that Zoro is wielding it, basically. So I do believe that Mihawk knows the technique to stop this, because he has a full demon manifestation himself. And I believe to stop this, you have to scar the eye. That is, my French theory. But overall, I just wanted to emphasize that spirals in general are something that in anime, and especially One Piece, is supposed to signify cursed spirits inhabiting a user's body. In the case of Naruto, we see it. That's the Kurama seal. And also in the case of Devil Fruits, we see it, which is the Devil Fruit Spiral. Also in the case of demonic swords and cursed sword users, we see the Spiral Eye. I believe this is the exact same case for Devil Fruit awakenings. I believe when you awaken a Devil Fruit, especially a Mythical God Devil Fruit, the Spiral Eye effect is somewhat visible in what we see in Gear 5. I believe this also may be the case here for Zunisha. Zunisha may just be a object with a Devil Fruit. Something that's a very popular theory, or a very interesting French theory of mine, is that I've heard that Zunisha is one of the final poneglyphs that ate a Devil Fruit, which would be poetic here. But yeah, so that's the second part of this video that I want to emphasize, that Devil Fruits, when you awaken them, have the same effect as a cursed sword, where the demon, when inside Devil Fruits, if it's strong enough, it can manifest in you and take over the user's body if the user's body is, or the user's will is too weak, which I think is the very same exact case for Vivi here. So in a nutshell, to wrap up this video, Imu is a Devil Fruit itself. The first words that Imu ever spoken is Lili, because Imu itself is the Devil Fruit that Lili has eaten. We even see a small silhouette in the last chapter, chapter 1085, of Imu almost looking like it has feminine traits, some feminine hair and a feminine face. And the popular theory that Lili is Imu is not far-fetched at all. But the way it is, I believe that it's hard to depict in the story, because Oda has not yet explored whether Devil Fruit awakenings can actually fully take control of the user's body, although it hasn't been implied by Vegapunk's theory that Devil Fruit awakenings do make the Devil Fruit take over the user's personality to some degree. I believe that Imu is the extreme of that version. And it's also very, very poetic that Imu, as something that's been portrayed to be God, is a devil itself, an actual devil within the Devil Fruit. So that's my theory. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys feel about the connection between Naruto's cursed seal, the significance of spirals, Imu's eye, as well as Devil Fruit, and how do you think that I explain cursed swords and cursed sword lore and cursed sword demon manifestations? Do you think that it's possible? What are some of the theories that you disagree with? What some of the theories that I included in this video that you think is more probable? So this is it. Imu is a Devil Fruit. Have a good one, guys. I know I've been gone for a while, but I'm back now. And I want to be the greatest One Piece theorist of all time. I'm going to leave off that. I want to be the greatest One Piece theorist of all time. I'm going to leave off that.